Welcome to CES. I'm Tom Kamber. I'm the Executive Director of Older Adults Technology Services, OATS from AARP. And I'm joined here today by Peter Kaldes, who is the President and CEO of Next 50, which is a wonderful philanthropic organization based in Colorado that supports a lot of initiatives that are really innovative in the field of aging, and some of them are related to technology as well. So we're here at CES to pick Peter's brains a little bit about what he's been learning. So Peter, tell me first of all, you just started this new position as the President and CEO of Next 50. How's it going? And tell us a little bit about what Next 50 does.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to see you again, Tom, here at CES. And so Next 50. Next 50 is a private foundation, it's national, based in Denver, that's really focusing on trying to create a world that values aging. And the way we look at it, to value aging, you have to create economic opportunities. And so we're focused on three key things. The first is, how do we end ageism to create that economic opportunity? How do we support aging in community, or aging in place, as some of our friends like to call it? And finally, and this is right up your alley, is how can we advance digital equity? So all our funding and investments are focused on those three pillars.
Excellent. And so how do you come to CES as part of that process, and what are you hoping to get out of being here?
Yeah, because our funding is focused on grant making and impact investing, we're looking at two key markets. First, we're looking at how technology can help our community-based organizations, particularly those that serve seniors. What are the gadgets? What are the wearables? What is the technology that will make them live better lives in place? Yeah. So that's one angle. The other angle is talking to investors to see what the trends are, and seeing if there's opportunities for Next 50 to collaborate with those investors, whether it be venture funds or other sources of capital for startups.
Let's start talking first about the community organizations that are serving older adults. What kinds of tech needs, and have you been able to survey them a little bit? I know you've worked in the past at American Society of Aging, and you were the director of a very innovative program in Florida before that, so you know the community groups pretty well. How do you see the state of affairs with community organizations that are working in the senior sector, and what they're already using in terms of tech, and what the next steps might be for them?
Yeah, candidly, I think the community-based organizations, or the nonprofit community generally, technology is woefully inadequate. And it comes from a place of whether they have the resources to invest in technology to make their work more efficient, but there's also a lack of capacity or understanding or appreciation that older adults are actually using technology, and they need to keep up with the times and keep up with their clients and older adults. So I see two major issues that community organizations face. It's capacity and money, resources.
Yeah, I've noticed, because I work with obviously a lot of organizations on the ground as well, a lot of the funders and even the public sector contract agencies often underappreciate how important the technology piece of the puzzle is. And so, you can get a big contract to provide meals or to provide transportation, but if you want to add some technology training or technology access at your site, there's not actually a box for that in the funding patterns. And so the private philanthropic sector becomes sort of the demonstration space for that. Can you talk a little bit about how you're thinking now as a foundation executive about the opportunity that gives you to make change?
Yeah, so first of all, we want to allow our grantees to ask for things like that. So for example, we have what's known as a capacity building grant that's coming out later on this year that allows for nonprofits to specifically ask for technology that will allow for greater impact. So we're no longer treating technology like a vendor that's expensive. It's actually part and parcel with delivering the mission of the organization. So we're going to encourage and incentivize nonprofits to apply and seek out that funding from us. And we're going to be funding technology products, the use of them. Second, I think there needs to be real appreciation by the staff and the people that work in the trenches, so to speak, that older adults want to use technology. They don't want to be isolated and lonely and be out in sort of a technology desert. And so it's incumbent on us as a foundation to also encourage training of the staff themselves so they feel comfortable. And then finally, we think as philanthropy, we have a role to talk to folks who don't normally listen to CBOs, community-based organizations, like government, like other foundations, and say, you know what, we went in, de-risked it for you, and funded some really catalytic projects. It's time you now, government, to come and insert yourself as well.
Right. So it's almost setting up that prototyping and showing the demonstration of the minimum viable product, if you want to put it that way, and then going out and connecting the dots for the sustainability funders who can come in and bring it to some kind of scale across Colorado, and as goes Colorado, so goes the nation, apparently. So
no, that's absolutely right. And while we do have a focus on funding in Colorado, we also fund nationally.
That's right.
And so we think there's a real opportunity here to have an exchange of ideas between Colorado and the United States, of our grantees and of our investments that we support. I mean, I love what H-Tech Collaborative here is doing at AARP, because you've brought together some really thoughtful startups who are being very intentional about not just wanting to learn about how to impact the H-Tech space, but also how to lean on AARP's massive reach to improve their products. I would like to see some more intentionality around connecting these startups with the community-based organizations who could really use them. After all, nonprofit space is a $2 trillion marketplace, and so I really think there's opportunity there. Right,
it's a huge potential growth area for people to do these investments.
That's right.
And you were talking about looking to connect to potential investments here. What have you seen that's attractive to you, and are you developing a strategy for where you think you can kind of fit into that niche out here?
Yeah, so we're walking around the floor looking at ways our grantees could leverage the technology, right? So, for example, there's a wonderful company out of Denver that has developed this robot called Ryan, which is effectively a social isolation robot. And Ryan can create a sense of friendliness, can be a friend, a pal, a companion, and also has the ability to read facial expressions. So if an older adult is a little still, Ryan will ask, "What's wrong? You haven't spoken to me recently," and engages the older adult in a way that, obviously without the robot, they would never have engaged.
Interesting. So you're looking for ways that your grantees might actually find the best of class products and services to connect to out here
absolutely.
And use them.
The other important area is around telehealth, obviously. While we aren't focused on healthcare at our foundation, because we think that there are many other foundations that are focused on healthcare and aging and tie those two, we think it's also important to focus on economic and social issues as you age, and so we'll be funding projects that support those efforts. Telehealth and being able to receive healthcare in your home or where you want to age is critically important. So we're looking for sophisticated wraparound products that can be deployed in rural communities, for example. Colorado, as you know, has rural as well as frontier communities. So the super rural communities, they need as much help as they can get.
We find that we've been working a lot in rural communities around the country, as you know, and the value add when you connect with an older person who's living in a small town or sometimes on a farm, and they may be miles from the nearest person that they can rely on for help or organizational support, the technology or the innovation side of these equations is a lifesaver for people, and we've been surprised by how enthusiastic people are at plugging into some of the programs that we're developing because of that.
And some other concerns that technology I think raises with respect to, you were talking about earlier, digital equity, is the tools and the way they're developed don't always get adopted by everyone in the same way, right? Or put differently, we have to be a little more sensitive to how people want to receive technology. A great example of this is I was having a conversation with someone that's using generative AI tools to design new logos for their senior-facing website, for their community-based organizations, nonprofit. They want to be creative and use AI. And they prompted the AI to create people. Well, the AI spit out white people. And while there are white people, there are also people of color. And so what can we do to influence algorithms and generative AI to be more inclusive from the get-go, which is similar to the work that AARP is doing around technology and making it more inclusive, to be more age inclusive.
And You just finished a multi-year stint as the president of the American Society for Aging, which is a different kind of role for you. And I know you were focusing really on innovation there and inclusiveness and things. What were your, I mean, now that you've got a few months of distance there, what are your takeaways from that experience, and what did you learn?
Well, first of all, I learned that we need to have a society and aging policies and aging infrastructure that reflects the diversity of our society in the United States, right? Mm-hmm. So when we introduce programs like inclusive leadership programs, when we expanded the authorship of our publications, we saw an increase in membership as a result. There are really good business reasons to be very inclusive and advance equity. Yeah. And so it was reinforcing and validating for me as a leader who wanted to do this anyway to see real tangible financial results.
Uh-huh. And can you give me a very specific example of a person or a specific program that you are particularly proud of?
Yeah, so there's a program that we launched called ASA Rise. Yeah. It was a leadership academy, effectively, for rising leaders of color in senior-facing organizations. Yeah. So typically, most nonprofits that serve older adults are run by people who look like you and me. And yet they're serving people who don't look like you and me. Mm-hmm. And so there's a real disconnect in creating programming that's culturally competent, or there's candidly bias in promoting people of color within these organizations. Yeah. So we took a step back and asked ourselves, what can we do as a professional membership society to educate and inform leaders of color to advance their careers, and what can we share with their allies, with their white leaders, that would allow further growth in these positions. And so I'm really proud that we launched ASA Rise with a handful of private aging foundations, and now it's in its third year, and it's graduated, I believe, nearly 120 young leaders, young and old leaders, and there's some wonderful anecdotes of people who've advanced their careers as a result of that program. So that's one I'm particularly proud of.
It's great. There's a little bit of a theme here of investing in people. You know, when you're talking earlier about working with technology and community-based organizations and saying it's not just about the tech, but it's also making sure people are empowered and trained to use it and trained to be able to deploy it and understand how to be strategic about it. You're investing in the sort of capacity of the people that are the heart and soul of these organizations, and it sounds like ASA Rise was an opportunity to think about strategies around diversity, but again, investing in human capital so that people are empowered to, solve those problems, with their own potentiality.
No, I think that's a great observation. I think also at Next 50, we're going to be continuing to invest in what we call the resiliency of our organization, which requires resilient leaders. Yeah. So we don't have all the answers. We can't assume the right path for a community leader because we're not in the community, but together we can come up with some real resilient strategies like funding for technology, like DEI training, like helping them advocate for more funding from government, that will create really strong, resilient organizations.
Nice. And other than the Ryan robot that you mentioned, have you seen other technology here at CES that got you excited about anything?
I am a big fan of wearables because I think they are a wonderful way to sort of manage your health passively. Yeah. And whether it's a wearable here that will help turn on and off lights, or here at H-Tech, or there's a version of a wearable that's slimmer and more comfortable to wear, but still collects really useful sleep, health, heart data. Yeah. I'm excited about wearables and all the ways in which I'm not going to know that my health is being monitored, but it'll help me in the long term.
I was just visiting with a group here that's part of the Age Tech Collaborative at AARP. It's called Mind Mic, and it's simply in-ear headphones, and while you're listening to whatever you're doing with the headphones, listening to Pat Benatar or something, they're also monitoring your heart rate and your vital symptoms, so that you're able to get data that allows you to really evaluate your heart health and track it over time. And I think that wearable dynamic around the kind of unobtrusiveness of it,
that's right,
is critical, because everybody does their blood pressure, you get the little machine and you check it a couple times. But if you have to set it up every day and you get the cuff on, people forget and they get out of the habit and then it doesn't happen.
That's right.
But as we're starting to make these transitions to the wearables, you can see as you're walking around here, the future of a lot of these monitoring experiences is completely unobtrusive. Almost you wouldn't even know it's there, but when you open up your phone, you're tracking data. Your steps and your heart rate and your blood pressure and things like that are becoming more integrated into daily activities, which is pretty cool.
And as you consider older adults today, they're not digitally native, you know this, and so the less obtrusive you can make something, the better. And the truth is, are you going to use all that data? Is the average person really going to be analyzing all their data? Maybe there are some health geeks out there that will do that. For me, I wear a ring, I wear a wearable, and for me it's about sleep. It's about when I wake up the next day, can I look at my app and see what happened last night that didn't allow me to sleep well? And as you know, sleep is critically important. In fact, there's some age tech startups here that are focused on sleep work. And I think the less obtrusive, the better, and use what you can from the data that's collected.
I'm excited about the kind of almost the extreme ends of the equation on the tech here right now. On the high end, everybody's talking about this Samsung TV that is effectively a plate of clear glass, and when the television is off, it's just a window, and then you turn it on and there's a TV there. So apparently it's at a price point that I won't be buying one right away. But the idea that you could have effectively a window in your house that is suddenly converts into being a television changes a lot of your thinking about space. You're thinking about the integration of your entertainment system into what you're setting up in your lived environment. So aging in place and trying to make our homes be more adaptive for ourselves. If we can have a transparent television screen, we could do a lot of things that make it more appealing to stay home. The other end of the equation is almost the very rudimentary pieces of tech. And I was really struck, I was looking at another age tech collaborative business here, it's called Lotus, and they have a ring that allows you to operate a doorbell, but the doorbell is mechanical. It's not digital. It's just a lever that pushes the button on the bell, and on the door, it's actually for light switches here, but it would also do a doorbell. And I have actually tried to retrofit apartments for older adults to get them to be able to control their intercom systems, and the intercom systems don't have a digital interface, so you need a mechanical arm. It's very 1980s, but those integrations of the kind of analog tech, which is more like mechanical pieces and articulating parts for things that'll operate a device, together with the Wi-Fi connectivity and the ability to connect to apps and things like that, has on the lower end of the technical scale enormous utilization potential, because most of our homes need that kind of retrofitting and that kind of adaptability. I'm finding more tech that fits that pattern as well.
I think that's right, and I think aging in place is such a wonderful business opportunity for traditional consumer-facing product companies. So for example, I was just over at Kohler, the faucet and bathtub and toilet manufacturers, and there are some gorgeous, beautiful high-end products there that, again, might be out of reach for many. But there are also products that integrate care. So think about sense and sound and all the sort of holistic ways one could relax or take a proper bath. You can imagine those could also deliver other sorts of treatments through these systems that have been developed. Right. So I love that even a slight adjustment to an existing consumer product, just tweaked slightly, is really a way to age in place.
Right. Well, one of the fun things about working in the aging sector, and it's kind of it's like a secret that hasn't gotten out yet, is older adults are constantly having to reinvent their own spaces because stuff isn't really designed for them most of the time. Social dynamics where you go to an event and you've got your the family's there and they've got the buffet going, and then your older relative is there and they're gonna have to go home and have a meal later, but maybe they can't cook it for themselves, or their finances don't allow them to like order in from whatever Uber Eats that they're going to do it. So they pack a care package for themselves. And you might think of that, oh, isn't that cute that your Aunt Sally is packaging a care package, but she's actually hacking the event a little bit. She's adapting what you set up the event to like have a thing and there's a buffet, but she's also adding a value there to say, and I'm going to get a second meal out of this. And there's actually a real value to that. I noticed it actually when I was at the bank a while back and I saw somebody with a walker, and the walker had 2 tennis balls stuck in the front of it because walkers are not designed very well and they trip and they get stuck in cracks. And so she had sliced up a tennis ball to fit on it, and I thought, well, there's a hack. That's no different than all the other hacking that people are doing to repurpose and adapt things to new approaches. So in aging, there's a kind of hacker culture that is not always appreciated, but a lot of the tech stuff that people are developing, they may have one idea for how it's going to get used, but somebody's got that Kohler, bathroom thing, and they're figuring out how to make it more appropriate for what they want.
Absolutely, and what I love is seeing these long-established corporate consumer-facing brands basically hacking their own products.
Yeah.
And I think it's incumbent on us who are in aging to point it out to them that actually there is an entire market here that you can tap into if you are just a little more intentional about tapping into an older adult consumer.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I see it as a selfish reason for wanting to be at Next 50, you're at Oates. It's really about investing in your own futures because I want to make sure that we have super sophisticated technology to take care of us when we age.
Yep.
And so I'm sort of advocating for my own future here.
That's right. So that's going to be my last question. Where do you see all this going? What's your vision for aging, 10 or 20 years from now, after seeing a little bit of this and thinking about the future of, technology and what's possible? What do you think is going to be, like, what pops to mind for you, and how, in an optimal world, how you would be getting to age in 20 years?
Yeah. Well, in an optimal world, I want to be seen as having value, whether I'm 40, 50, 70, or 80, right? So as a human, I want to continue to have value and have society see value in me. But from a technology perspective, and what I hope to see in 20, 25 years here at CES, is really what we're focused on Next 50. It's, let's end ageism, let's get over ageist notions of consumerism, let's build a home that is allows me to age and play successfully, and then let's make sure everyone has access to it. Let's make it affordable, let's make it accessible. Yeah. So I'm really optimistic that thanks to the work you're doing, thanks to the work ARP is doing, and candidly, I think Next 50 and others are doing, we can get there.
It's great. I think it's a pretty exciting vision, and I'm happy to be working with you on it.
Me too.
Excellent. Well, thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
It's a real pleasure.